The Unhappy Hour on TheNewAmericanMedia.com.
Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way galaxy, this is The Unhappy Hour. My name's Brian Engelman, and this is the way too early Cleveland Browns preview show after the draft, after free agency, after the 2018 campaign with Baker Mayfield and crew. I'm pleased to be joined with Brandon Odell today. Brandon, how are you, sir?
I am doing great. Is our sound still good?
I think our sound is good, and like I said, I think the microphone is a little hot, so it's going to pick up a lot of the peripheral noise, just something to be aware of. Brandon, thank you so much. I was saying in the chat rooms, we're live in Facebook. One is the Unhappy Hour Sports Show group, and the other is Strictly Browns, only Browns content. I was saying that you and I have been doing radio shows since 1997, if you can believe that. That is stunning.
Yeah, what was that, 22 years? You got the big 4-0 coming up here this week.
I do, my man. I'm turning 40 years young on Friday. Go figure.
Yeah.
And you're not too far behind.
Yep, I got a few more months after that. But off the air, if we end up talking, happy birthday, and hope it's a good one for you. Maybe in a less public realm, we can discuss what you're getting to do for your birthday.
All right, let's do that. We'll power things down afterward, and then we can talk, because I miss you, buddy. So, look, man, I am super excited about this Cleveland Browns season. Let me start with that. Brandon, is this the most excited you've been for a Cleveland Browns offseason in your lifetime?
In my life? I think that you and I, and especially you, are the eternal optimist.
True.
And so I think that this is definitely as excited as I have ever been. But there were a couple of years in there where we really thought that this thing was going to get turned around. And then it didn't end up going quite that way. But there definitely have been a few other instances where I have been equally as excited, but I think that my confidence level to go along with that excitement is probably at an all-time high.
Yeah, and okay, I like that distinction. You are correct. When I do my season preview show, I do my predictions, and I usually predict. Brandon, do you want to put the words in my mouth, what my prediction is?
Well, it's a lazy 16-0.
Why is it lazy? What if I really believe it?
Well, because it keeps you from having to make any sort of real speculation in that case.
All right, look, I get where you're coming from with that. I'm not gonna bust you too hard on it, but I like how you made the distinction: most excited versus most confident. I think I'm excited every year. This might be the most excited I've been. Maybe in the Bernie days, I was a little kid, and my excitement level was, I didn't know what it felt like to get crushed by expectations and failure to accomplish championships. I didn't understand that, so maybe I was more excited then. But I think you're right. I think this is the most confident that I have ever been.
Yeah,
I think that's a good distinction.
When we were kids in the Bernie days, we were far more interested in playing football than watching football. So let's be honest. If there was a game on, I'd be coming back and forth in and out of the house to see what my dad was watching if he wasn't at the game. But besides that, I was probably in the backyard playing it.
Man, if we didn't play football all the time in the backyard, at the neighbor's place, across the street, it was constant backyard football. Everybody was playing football. That's
the way it should be.
I think that is the way it should be. And so when I did my Cleveland Browns documentary, and you can check it out, it's on YouTube, called Football Equals Family, the story of the Cleveland Browns' perfect season parade. I interviewed one of these guys prior to the parade, and he was saying, remember when you had the Cleveland Browns inserts with the plain dealer, and you'd get the full page, and everybody had them hanging in their front window? You'd walk down the street, and everybody had those. I think it's pretty incredible, and I think we lost some of that along the way. I don't know if that was changing times or when the team moved to Baltimore. What do you think? Why do you think that changed a little bit?
Well, Well, because there wasn't really anything to celebrate. And I think, as I said, the confidence is coming back. I think that they have to go out and prove it no matter what. So let's hold our horses a little bit, pump the brakes, as they say. Now, if the team is 3-0, you're going to see this town in a mania that you have never seen before. But they have to. They definitely have to go out and do it on the field. I mean, you can have. I think Dorsey has said this as well. You know, we haven't done anything yet. Kitchens has said the same thing.
Right.
But the confidence level is there, as it should be. They are surrounded by a wealth of playmakers. They have, a young quarterback who oozes confidence. And, I mean, we'll just see what happens. But keep people healthy, and let's go.
Absolutely. So let's go into this show. I'm going to split it up into two parts. I'm going to do I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to do ownership, coaching, and offense. And then I'm going to do defense and special teams. We're going to split it up that way. So let's start at the top. I know everybody wants to talk about the players, but let's get away from the players for a second. Let's talk about the ownership of Jimmy Haslam. Can you talk for a second about what we've seen with Jimmy and Dee Haslam, actually, how they tried building this, what didn't work, and what changed with the addition of John Dorsey? Because ownership needs to be mentioned here with this turnaround, and I don't think people are giving them the credit when they were taking a bunch of abuse for the 0-16 season.
Well, I'll tell you what the number one thing is that changed with John Dorsey is the addition of I guess what we hope to be a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. That's the number one, number two, number three, number four, number five thing. I mean, you could wrap all those into one. Without a quarterback to steer the ship, none of this is possible. So I think the fact that you have that is the number one reason by far that John Dorsey is looked upon in such a favorable light right now. If he had picked Allen, which there were a lot of people saying that he would have or could have, and Allen had just kind of had his all right year, looked kind of promising, but looked kind of raw too. I think we'd probably be talking a little bit differently right now. We'd still be pretty excited, but I mean, and heaven forbid if we still had Deshaun Kaiser, throwing interceptions and looking scared. I mean, entirely different story. So you found a quarterback. A little bit of luck is involved with that because let's face it, we've identified quarterbacks before. And if Manziel would have worked out, then we would have had this kind of confidence going into the 2015 season, which we actually did have in a way, if you remember. But the fact of the matter was there was that controversy because you didn't know if it was going to be Manziel or if it was going to be Brian Hoyer.
And you had the Josh Gordon distraction to boot. Those are good points, and we did flip Deshaun Kaiser for Demarius Randall, who's worked out really well for us. Swaggy player and good talent. We'll get to him on the defensive side in a minute here, but yeah, you're very right that this hinges on the quarterback position, and you look at what John Dorsey's done in the past. I'm actually wondering how much of a decline you're going to see from Patrick Mahomes over there with the Chiefs now that Kareem Hunt's gone, now that Tyreek Hill is looking at whatever he's looking at. I still don't know the story, and there's lots of accusations, and until you actually prove something, I try to take it easy on passing judgment. But you've seen a track record of Dorsey picking good quarterbacks, and I'm wondering, did you happen to see Baker Mayfield at the Kentucky Derby yesterday?
The sound was off, but I
okay.
saw that he was being interviewed.
Yeah, they interviewed him once, and kind of a back and forth about the upcoming season, and he made his pick, and then right before like the gentleman starts your engines thing, I think they say riders up, so all the riders get up on the horses, and Baker Mayfield did the read-in for that. So he's taking pictures with Tom Brady. He did that commercial with Tom Brady, and it sure looks like Baker Mayfield is set to perhaps become one of these new future faces of the NFL, hopefully for a really long time. They're pushing him really strongly, and he's got charisma. He oozes swagger, and he's backing it up with play on the field. He set a rookie record for most touchdowns thrown. I guess we want to get to quarterback, and we got a good question in the chat room from Bobby Mullins. I will get to that question about backup quarterback position in a second. But when we get to Dorsey, I guess before we get into the draft specifically, how would you grade this year's draft from John Dorsey? We could talk about the draft because that's what the general manager does. How did he do?
I would probably say just a C. And the reason why is because I don't think that anybody is really too overly enamored with what they got. But the fact of the matter is that if you include Odell as part of that draft class, then you immediately bump it up to an A. But if you're just talking about the guys that they picked, you always have people that have their guys that are trying to think about saying this the right way, that are their hidden gems. And guys like Sione Takitaki, I want to make sure I say his name correctly,
you did well.
or Mac Wilson in the 5th round. If guys like that really work out, then obviously it moves up to an A draft with or without Odell Beckham Jr. But Greedy Williams seems like is going to be a pretty good pick for them. I certainly hope that he is, but he dropped to the bottom of the 2nd round for a reason. Somebody like Sione Takitaki was in the 3rd round for a reason. Mac Wilson certainly was in the 5th round for a reason. There are a lot of talent evaluators that passed on some of these guys, so they have to have either A, holes in their game, or B, holes in their character that have caused some players to drop like that. So I guess we'll just basically see what happens. But, it wasn't bad. I mean, they filled some needs. They needed some linebackers. They got some linebackers. They needed a few more DBs to compete. They got a few more DBs to compete. So I don't think anybody is going to truly complain about what they got. But, welcome to our new reality, Cleveland. I mean, where we're at right now is that the draft is not the highlight of our season anymore. The draft supplements the highlight of our season, which is January and hopefully February football.
You nailed it. You said that perfectly. And talk about Greedy Williams, because to back up to what you just said, yes, I'll agree with you. Maybe a C. I think this kind of follows what John Dorsey does. He'll take the talent of Antonio Callaway. And remember, Baker Mayfield with planting the flag at Ohio State, grabbing his crotch, getting arrested. This was a guy with character concerns. I think John Dorsey, from Kareem Hunt to Tyreek Hill, he takes troubled players who have been, have had mishaps. He'll take the talent and hope that some of them work. I think that's his cost-benefit analysis. That's how John Dorsey rolls. Good.
I was just going to say that is absolutely how he rolls. 100% agree.
And so like someone like Greedy Williams, and I will say that I will give them an A in the draft, kind of similar to how you do, but I will include Odell Beckham Jr. because that 1st-round pick, we're not talking about trying to go get whatever. We got a known entity in Odell Beckham Jr., and that says something. It's almost like trading Andrew Wiggins for Kevin Love. Like, I'll take the proven all-star. Instead of, like, rolling the dice. And that's what he did. He went and got proven talent, but Odell Beckham has question marks surrounding him from some of his social media posts with what looked like it may have been cocaine next to the pizza box and stuff. So, there are people that are concerned about that, but on paper, the team is looking dangerous, as they say. And you're right. We'll see what happens with Mac Wilson. I think there's talent there. Taki. We got people with talent that can fly around at that linebacker position. Now, we'll get to hit them a little bit more in the defensive side of things. So let's do this. Let's move past Jimmy and D. Haslam. Let's move past John Dorsey. Let's talk about Freddie Kitchens. He's kind of become a latest target for, like, Colin Cowherd and some of these other clowns that are, already putting him on the hot seat and, trying to bash the guy. What's your take now with a little bit of time removed from Greg Williams, Hugh Jackson, settling in with Freddie Kitchens. What's your thought on the entire coaching staff of the Cleveland Browns this year?
I like Freddie Kitchens. I think that it's very, very important for a quarterback to have confidence in his head coach. Probably more important than any other, position. Because I think that more than any other position, the quarterback and the head coach work in tandem. Whereas there are a lot of other positions, like, say, linebackers. Like, how much do the linebackers, are they really going to have interaction with Freddie Kitchens? They're going to have a lot more interaction with Steve Wilkes and the linebacker coach, which, shoot, I can't even tell you off the top of my head who that is. So it depends on position coaches, I think, quite a bit. And obviously there is a good relationship there with Baker's position coach, Ryan Lindley, that started last year when Kitchens took over the offense. Lindley was brought in to coach quarterbacks at that point. And so there's a good relationship there. But I like Kitchens. I think he is he's up front, he's honest, he's true to himself, and those are all qualities that Baker Mayfield likes.
Absolutely, and bringing in Wilkes with some head coaching experience, you hope that these things are going to translate. You hope that these things are going to impact the team in a way that kind of solidifies the foundation of the team, if you will, because Freddie just hasn't done this before. It doesn't mean that he can't do it, just like Baker. Well, he hasn't been a quarterback in the NFL, but it doesn't mean he can't do it. It's just there's no track record either way. So you hope that the coaching staff that they've assembled is going to really work wonders and knock this team in. I saw something really interesting. I don't know if you read the report from Myles Garrett. I guess maybe we could do that on the offensive or the defensive side. But he was saying that Greg Williams was really limiting his game as far as the stunts he was allowed to play and the style he was allowed to play. Did you see any of that? Because that kind of goes to Greg Williams and playing to the strengths of your team, which is what Freddie Kitchens does, versus I have a system, you're going to play in my system. It's a system. Deal with it. Did you see that story by chance?
Yeah, I did, and it makes sense, I think, to some extent. That Greg Williams is, you're talking about a guy with an ego, that's sky high. And so, he has his way of wanting to do things, and he wants his players to match that as closely as possible, and probably a lot more than many other players or many other coaches would. So it doesn't surprise me that was something that came from Greg Williams.
Yeah, same here. In playing the right defensive end position on an undefeated team and, making the playoffs 2 years in a row and state championship junior year when I was a backup defensive end, just hearing Myles Garrett saying that he wasn't allowed to do darts and X's and spin moves, why are you wasting him? Like that's, you put your talented guy at right defensive end and you let him dance. You work with the linebackers and you switch off, who has outside containment. It kind of stunned me. It really made me reevaluate how much credit I had been giving to Greg Williams and how I wanted to give him a chance. And hearing something like that, it really floored me. It was really disappointing. And I'm looking forward to a new and improved Myles Garrett. Not that he's ever been bad, but if he's now only now going to get a chance to really unleash, I think the league is going to be in for something interesting. But let's go through the offense here. Starting at quarterback with Baker Mayfield, obviously setting a rookie record for touchdowns thrown. What did you see out of Baker last year? Who do you kind of compare him to that you've seen play in the league over your years? And what do you expect from him this season?
I wouldn't really, I think that so often we are too quick to compare players to other players and say, like, is Baker Mayfield going to be the next Tom Brady? Is he going to be the next Drew Brees? Instead of doing that, why don't we just, say that here are some traits that he has that are very favorable. I mean, I think that his arm talent is unique. I think that there have been a lot of different reports from different Cleveland Browns beat men and stuff like that. And they've said that it's not so much like, say, comparing him to Deshaun Kaiser. It's not so much that he throws the ball harder than Deshaun Kaiser did, because Deshaun Kaiser had a pretty good fastball, but that it sounds different. It says that the spin of the ball is unique, and you actually hear like a whistle that comes with his throws that you wouldn't have heard with Kaiser. And so I think that's one thing that's pretty neat to think about. But, so you talk about the fact that he has a strong arm, not particularly, athletically excellent. I think that Kyler Murray would probably school him in just about every single possible athletic competition you could do. But I think the fact that, as I had used the term earlier, he oozes confidence and he breeds competitiveness within his teammates. And people want to go to war for this guy. And so that's going to be ultimately, I think, what is going to set him apart. So if you want to make any kind of a comparison, I mean, you're talking about like those are the kind of traits of like a young Joe Montana or something like that. Man, wouldn't that be awesome? But I mean, Baker is Baker, and instead of him worrying about being the next Drew Brees, how about worrying about other people wanting to be the next Baker Mayfield? So I think that's where that's going. So
well played. I like that.
He has all the qualities you look for.
Yeah, you remember if we go back to, I think it was the Jets game, I think Jarvis, as well as Baker played in that Jets game, I remember Jarvis dropping one, maybe two, that hit him right in the hands. Maybe Njoku dropped one, maybe Callaway. There were a lot of dropped passes from the wide receivers because they had never caught a pass like that from Baker Mayfield, because Hugh Jackson wouldn't even let him compete for the starting position. They weren't used to seeing that ball come in that way. And it took a little bit of time for them to get used to it. And I remember the stories about John Elway. The receivers would talk about they would get little X marks on their chest. The ball got there so quick, and the indentation on their skin, on their arms, on their hands, it would leave the X mark of where the football stitched together at the end. So when you talk about that ball whistling, I mean, I saw Baker Mayfield, it looked like he was pulling slingshot. Such a dart. Throwing darts as opposed to Tyrod Taylor hitting beach volleyballs. Like those inflatable beach volleyballs, and Baker came in shooting slingshots. One of the questions in the chat room over here from Bobby Mullins, he says, not wishing any bad juju on our savior Baker Mayfield, but do you think we have a good enough backup in Stanton to carry us if something would happen to him? Do you think we need another backup? What say you, Brandon?
I mean, he's won games in the NFL before. He's not Nick Foles. We don't have the top backup in the NFL or anything like that. But the goal in having a backup is that generally speaking, if you have a quarterback who's going to be out for 3 or 4 games, that you can go 500 while he's gone. So could Stanton do that for us? Sure. He's done it in the past. Let's face it, best case scenario is he never even sniffs the field, except if you're blowing out a team 42-7.
And let's hope that we are, and I think that we could be, actually. Those teams I played for in high school, in my junior year, I was the second string defensive end, but we were blowing out teams by 30, 40, 50 points a lot of times in the third quarter, so I got to play against the starters third and fourth quarter. It really prepared me for my senior year. Yeah, and Drew Stanton, we got a 12th season pro coming out of Michigan State. But we also got Garrett Gilbert. He's someone that Dorsey plucked off of the AAU. AAU? Am I saying that right? Am I remembering that league right?
The AAF.
AAF, yeah, I knew I was messing something up there. Any thoughts on Garrett Gilbert? Because I kind of think he might end up being the number 2, but you have any thoughts on him? Or?
He's been in the NFL before. He's tried to stick with a couple of different teams, hasn't been able to do it. He's young, he's talented. He is the he is going to go down in history as the AAF's all-time leading passer.
Yeah.
So
that's a safe record.
He's your young developmental guy. That's what he's there for. Give him a couple more years, maybe to see if he can be possibly your good backup or anything like that. But with Drew Stanton, he's pretty much just a coach on the field at this point as well. So we'll see. I mean, like I said, the goal is that these guys never even play. So.
Good point. All right, let's move on to people that are playing. Let's talk about the running back position. Nick Chubb was a second-round pick last year from John Dorsey, and he was a 1,000-yard running back until he lost a couple yards on one of the final plays and ended up with 996 or something silly. But talk about Nick Chubb and what it means with the addition of Kareem Hunt to the mix halfway through the season. And then Duke Johnson, who said, I want to get traded, and the team said, no, we're good. We're going to keep you. What are your thoughts on the running back position?
Running back is in good shape. I definitely see why we are holding on to Duke, because for those first 8 games especially, we're going to need him. And then say that Chubb does get hurt in week 5. Duke gets to be the man for a few weeks, and what if Chubb tears his ACL, as he's done before, and he's gone for the season? All of a sudden, Duke's role grows exponentially, and is counted on even when Kareem Hunt comes back. And let's not, just automatically assume Kareem Hunt comes back. I mean, you don't know that something else couldn't happen and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not saying it should or that it would, but obviously, with someone who's made mistakes in the past, i.e., look at Tyreek Hill, people make mistakes again. So, we don't know necessarily what we can count on out of Kareem Hunt, and so you got to put team over player in that case, and we'll see what happens. But Duke Johnson is a good player, and we need good players for this team.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about wide receiver, shall we? Obviously, take it from the top. OBJ, take it from the top.
I mean, to be honest, all I know about OBJ is that he's awesome and that he makes great circus catches. I mean, you don't generally see too many Giants games on TV the last couple of years just because they've been down. So they're not necessarily they're not the 4 o'clock national Fox game too often. And so, regionally, we get, generally speaking, your AFC North games here. And if the Browns aren't playing, you're seeing the Steelers or the Bengals or the Ravens. And then, all we know is that OBJ is supposed to be great. So that's what we know. So we'll see if he can do it.
And so Jarvis Landry, his connection with Odell, and Odell working out with Baker Mayfield in the offseason, and then bringing in their same position coach from down in LSU, how much of it, are you surprised at the amount of impact both on and off the field from Jarvis Landry's speech about bad attitudes and bad practice habits becoming contagious? What do you make of just how valuable Jarvis Landry has been to this team?
I think that he has been incredibly valuable. Definitely, if for nothing else, he's been a very solid player in his 1 year here, but it's leadership. And obviously, that's something hopefully that can continue, and that he can make sure that OBJ stays on the right track with maybe some of his past tendencies to stick out negatively on a few different occasions. So we'll see what he can do to kind of temper some of the negative enthusiasm that might come out of Beckham occasionally. But all things considered, Jarvis Landry, solid players, made some great catches, had a couple of drops, but everybody does. Just a solid player. So just FYI, got about 10 minutes.
Gotcha. Talk about the rest of the receivers. I think with Landry and with Landry and Beckham, you're going to have a lot more open looks for people like Rashard Higgins, for people like Antonio Callaway. Who do you expect to make those final roster spots? Like, do you think that these guys are going to be big-time playmakers? They'll have the potential to cause some damage this year?
Well, I think you just said it. I think Callaway and Higgins are going to be the two guys that kind of round out your top four, provided that there aren't any injuries. I mean, if you remember last year, there was some talk about Derek Willis. You know, he was the one that made that game-saving catch in the Baltimore overtime win early last season. So he then immediately broke a collarbone or something like that, the following week in practice. So having him back, he's another big body to kind of keep an eye on. And then Jalen Strong is another guy that they brought in to compete. So there's a lot of people. There's only one football. Beckham and Jarvis are going to get it a lot. I think that you have a good security blanket in Rashard. You have kind of your maybe you get 3 or 4 balls a game as a deep threat with Callaway. But don't leave out the tight ends. You know, you have Njoku, and he'll still need his targets as well. I think he's a guy that stands to benefit quite a bit from the addition of OBJ.
Absolutely, and you saw Dorsey go over to the Chiefs and pluck out some backup depth at tight end as well. Someone that can block a little bit more, but I think you're going to see a little bit of action from the tight end position that you weren't expecting. I don't know about Njoku. We'll see. I think Demetrius Harris is going to get some serious playing time. Let's go to the offensive line here. Offensive line, obviously, we traded Kevin Zeitler to the Giants as part of the Odell Beckham trade, but we're putting Austin Corbett into that spot. What do you make of our line? Obviously, Baker didn't have a lot of pressure in the second half of the season. How do you feel about our line this year? Minus Joe Thomas, obviously.
I feel pretty good. Obviously, having Zeitler gone as part of the Olivier Vernon deal opens up that big hole for what you hope is going to be a seamless transition for Austin Corbett, but we don't know yet. So we'll see how he plays and develops, which if he does, that's a win-win there. I mean, you feel pretty good about Bitonio, you feel pretty good about Robinson, you feel pretty good about everything. You don't feel tremendous about any position outside of left guard with Bitonio, but you feel pretty good.
Okay, and I'm okay with that. And we did draft somebody on the offensive line that people were saying he was the it was either Sports Illustrated or ESPN. They kind of gave our lineman that we drafted kind of like the player to watch tag. I forget exactly how they said it, but kind of like the steal of the draft. Keep an eye on this guy. So in Dorsey we trust.
Drew Forbes.
Yes, there we go, Drew Forbes. So in Dorsey we trust for now.
Yeah, and with that Drew Forbes, I mean, very similar to, say, Garrett Gilbert. I mean, the goal is that the guy never sees the field. So
good point.
Even special teams, you don't really have as much of a need for offensive linemen on special teams anymore, outside of maybe blocking for field goals or something like that. But chances are, I don't think Forbes, provided that everybody's healthy, he's probably not going to be active on game day very often. At least not as a rookie.
Right. Let's hope we don't see him as a rookie. Maybe as a developmental player 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, if all goes well. Okay, that's fine. But yeah, let's hope we don't see him next year. You talked about the kicking team. Let's go over. We're going to switch from offense. Let's do defense, special teams, starting with special teams. Talking about kicker, we used a 5th-round draft pick on Austin Siebert. What are your thoughts on this? That's it was a little startling, but maybe not startling at all. What are your thoughts?
You had a lot of picks. Not necessarily all of them were going to make the team. You can take a flyer on a couple of guys and see what happens. Seibert, I believe is how you say his name.
Thank you.
If he's better than Joseph, good for us. Besides that, if he doesn't make the team, then then I guess you feel pretty good about the direction that Joseph's going.
What about kick returner and special teams coordinator? Like, what are your thoughts on the special teams in general? Obviously, the return game was pretty weak last year, and just a lot of miscues from the coaching. Are you more confident in what we have planned for return man and for the whole coaching scheme in general, or just is it still a crapshoot until we see it?
I think until we see it. I think Callaway is probably going to be the guy that is going to get the best chance to make an impact there with Jabril Peppers being gone. So we'll see what he brings to the table, I guess.
All right, sounds good. Let's go to the defensive line. The Browns spent a lot of energy, resources, free agent money, and trade capital to revamp the the defensive line. Tell us about the D-line and how excited are you? Because people are saying this could be one of the best D-lines in the league.
I think something that cannot be undervalued is the continued growth of Larry Ogunjobi.
Yeah.
In year 3, everyone's talking about this big jump that you're going to see from Myles Garrett from star to superstar. But let's see the jump for Larry Ogunjobi from solid NFL starter to star. And then playing alongside Sheldon Richardson, who has always been a solid NFL player, and then Olivier Vernon, who also has been a solid to very good NFL player. You've made some really good additions on the defensive line. So you like what you have. You have that Coley, who probably, he might not even make the team. You have some of these guys that we've counted on for significant minutes the last few years that they might not even have roles on the team anymore, and that's a good thing. That means that you're more competitive, and that it's harder for these undrafted free agents, which is what Coley was, to be able to stick with a team. So let him go over to Miami or wherever and make a name for himself. We've got bigger aspirations than just developing diamonds in the rough all the time.
Yeah, you don't go for Odell Beckham Jr. and Sheldon Richardson and Olivier Vernon if you're trying to meander through the middle rounds. Like, you're going for it. You're really going for it. And we saw that as a blueprint with Sean McVay and the Rams with, second-year quarterback. There's a time before you pay everybody to go for your Super Bowl run, and I think we're in it. Let's talk about linebacker position. People are wondering if Joe Schobert was overrated. People are, we obviously we've revamped the linebacker position. Talk about who we have and what you're liking, what you're still question marked on.
I have a lot of question marks about the linebackers. I think we've shown that we have some solid guys there, but at no point have we ever had that guy in my recollection of the Browns since 1999. We've never had that linebacker that truly instills fear in that other team. We've had solid guys who can make a lot of tackles. A lot of times it's because people are flying past the defensive line, and you have a lot of opportunities to make tackles as a linebacker when people are regularly getting 5-6 yards past the line of scrimmage. So some of those numbers sometimes can be misleading. So, guys like Kirksey, Schobert, they're going to have to show what they can really do. These younger guys, I had mentioned earlier, that Taki and that Mac Wilson, I think you'll have an opportunity to come in and compete for some playing time. And if they can show that they're ready to make an impact, and if you're better than Schobert, if you're better than one of these other guys, then that's great. So we'll see. But hey, listen, let's do DBs real quick, and then I got to run. I got to get ready to start taking advantage of this beautiful day outside.
Absolutely. Let's talk about it. We obviously got Denzel Ward and pairing him up with Greedy Williams now and a whole lot of other moves. This is a position, I believe, that's what you played in high school, was defensive back somewhere over there, right? So talk about what we have now.
We like Greedy Williams so far. Everything we hear is that he is not necessarily the best tackler, but that he is really good in coverage, and that's what they pay that's what a corner is paid for. He's paid to cover wide receivers. He's not paid to be an in the box safety. So if he can be a good cover guy on the other side of Denzel, he can be a third or fourth corner to get started while we still have Terrence Mitchell and T.J. Carey, and then when somebody gets hurt, he can slide in and start taking more of a role. I think that's great, but he's a solid cover guy, and we'll see what we have from him. Besides that, you have some of these other young guys. You have that Sheldrick Redwine, who maybe is more of your traditional safety. He's from the U, so obviously they have a good safety history. We'll see what we can get there. There was a guy in the 7th round, I think, that we picked up. I don't even know his name, to be honest. I feel bad saying that, but that's a depth guy, a guy that's sort of similar to the kicker. You bring him in, probably have a few other UFAs that come in that all kind of get lumped into that same pile, and maybe one of them can make the team as a gunner on special teams or something. But your main guys in the defensive backfield, you've already mentioned Demarius Randall. There's a space for possibly that strong safety. Who's the guy that they picked up from Pittsburgh? Morgan Burnett. So he's going to have the first crack at it. But we've brought in other safeties in the past that haven't necessarily worked out so well. So we don't know. I mean, there was a reason why Pittsburgh let him go. So we'll see what he has for us. And but the defensive backfield will will succeed if Denzel and Demarius have good seasons and stay healthy. That's all there is to that.
A very key component to this, and I'll let you go, Brandon, a very key component is going to be to remember that if that defensive line starts dominating, and we have, number 1 overall picks and all-pro players there, and we have people like Denzel Ward on the back end who are superstars, that's going to, if you put pressure on the front end and the back end, that might allow those linebackers to really shine in between exponentially talented position players. And I think this has the potential to be a very special year. If you're getting a lot of pressure on quarterback, that means a lot of interceptions, a lot of messed up plays, and a lot of improvisation that leads to linebackers looking good. But hey, like you said, and everybody else has said, nobody's proven a thing yet. They'll put it on paper, they'll put it on the field, and we'll see what happens then. On the field, Brandon, what is your prediction, our way too early prediction of this Cleveland Browns team? Where do you see us finishing the season?
Provided that everybody stays healthy, I think that taking a 3 to 4 game jump from where we were this past year is a reasonable expectation. And so I think you kind of put you're right around that 10 to 11 win range. If you see growth with some of these players like Baker Mayfield on offense and Myles Garrett on defense, that's the expectation. The expectation is they will compete to win the AFC North, and then kind of throw their chips in the middle for the playoffs and see where things go. But I think that anything less than competing at the very least for a wild card spot, if not the AFC North championship, will be looked upon as being a disappointment this year.
And can you believe that these are the new expectations, Brandon? How great does it feel?
It feels great, and let's do it. Let's go.
Let's go, Brownies. All right, buddy. Thank you so much. Send your love to the missus and everybody and your little one. And I will give you a buzz off air real quick once I wrap this up.
All right, sounds great.
Thanks,
Bye.
pal. To be continued. There goes Brandon, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. This is our way too early season preview, but we got through free agency. We got through the draft. We kind of have an idea of what we're looking at with the team right now. All the practices are starting. All the new players are coming in. This is such an exciting time to be a Cleveland Browns fan. Let's go get it. Let's go get it. Subscribe, youtube.com/TheNewAmericanMedia. That's where these go. I think I'm going to do a YouTube channel just for the sports. YouTube.com. I got to set that one up, so give me a second there. Follow us. 2 groups on Facebook. We have The Unhappy Hour Sports Show. That is our flagship. You see the cool neon sign behind us. So awesome. So The Unhappy Hour Sports Show. Follow us on Facebook. It's a private group. And then there's another private group called Strictly Browns, fueled by The Unhappy Hour. Follow us in both of those. On Twitter, we're at, what are we? At @TheUnhappyHour_. Just follow us all the places. Instagram.com/TheUnhappyHour. So I couldn't be any more excited for the season to start. I'm amped and appreciative that my buddy Brandon was able to join me. He and I have been doing Browns shows for a really long time. We're probably going to go to a game or two this year. And I appreciate all of you. I'm going to do more of these sports shows. I'm going to do more shows. All of the things coming up soon. Bear with me. Been in a bit of a transitional period, figuring out a few strategic plans with the show. But you see, we're not going anywhere. We ain't going anywhere. You see the Krylon. Whoop, I'm pointing. There we go. Got the Krylon on the screen. Got the logo back here. All the things going. I have all the screens in front of us. Extra lighting. New studio. Things are going to be great. And there's never been a better time to be a Browns fan. Let's go get that championship. And I say let's compete for it this year. My prediction? An unlazy prediction of 16-0, undefeated season, Super Bowl champion. We're going to take down the 72 Dolphins. Could you imagine? Just picture it now. Picture the commercial and the fun where the Browns are going to, like, the doors are going to swing open and it's going to be Baker Mayfield walking with swag and Odell. It's going to be like a slow motion, kind of like a Reservoir Dogs intro, walking into the room, raising a glass, cheersing the 72 Dolphins remaining members. Just welcome to the club. I'm already seeing it. I'm already seeing the commercial. Visualize it. Visualize health. Visualize success. Visualize growth. Visualize dominance. That's what football's supposed to be. And I think we have the talent this year to do it. Yes, we can improve in a few areas. Linebacker, maybe a defensive back still. Maybe a little offensive line depth. I mean, we're stacked. When Kareem Hunt, the number one running back in your league, is your backup, and when Duke Johnson, who could probably go start for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or some of these other teams, when he's your third string, man, I'm all right with that. I'm all right with that. This team's looking good. I appreciate you. I love you, and we'll talk again soon. Take care. Peace.
It's the Unhappy Hour.